Hi, my name is Amelung, and today I'm going to be doing my Culminating on book-to-movie adaptations. So basically, my research question is what visual and auditory screenplay techniques are necessary to successfully compose a book-to-movie adaptation? Basically, in layman's terms, it's basically just taking the novel that I have in front of me and turning it into a film that's both cinematographically correct and enjoyable for the audience. So the rationale behind this, my entire life I've been very interested in both books and movies. It's been a lot of mediums that have really influenced my life, and I'm very interested in it, so this was a natural topic for me. And also, if you'll notice, if you think a lot of the movies that have come out in recent years have been based off some sort of book, whether it be comic book or regular book. So I was wondering, why is this? Why did they do this? So if we're just looking through some films that have come out in recent decades, a lot of these up here are very popular films, very successful films, rated very highly on Rotten Tomatoes. And if you think, what do they all have in common? They all came from a book at one point in time. So why would you do this? Well, 51% of the top 2,000 movies that have come out in recent decades have been book-to-movie adaptations, meaning overall they score very highly. They're critically acclaimed movies. Also, they consistently score very high at the box office, which is good because when a company invests into a big project like this, they want to make sure that they can get their money back, which these films have time and time again proven that they can do. Another concept is brand extension. Basically, it's saying if it exists in one form and I turn it into another form, a lot of people are going to follow from the original form. For example, a lot of people in the 90s read the Harry Potter books. They were extremely popular. And then when the movies came out, all the people that had already read the books went and saw the movies too. So basically, these companies are doubling their money. It's also already been proven successful in the first medium, so it's a wise investment for the second. And also, if you think about it, a book already has a plot. And if it's already been a very good book, it'll probably be a very good movie too. So again, sound investment. So it's very smart financially. Just thinking financially, it's very smart for a lot of companies to be able to do this. So strategies necessary to adapt. There are four really main key things important to this. Adaptation theory, thoughts being conveyed, auditory stimuli, and visual stimuli, which I will all go over. This is when my product comes in. So my product, I took the book through Android's Dream of Electric Sheep, and I went through this one section. I have not read this book, and I did not see the subsequent movie. And so I went through the book and converted it into a screenplay, and I wanted to see the main differences between the book and the movie and why the director would choose to do these things different from the book. So I did it in the classic Hollywood style of screenplay, and all the blue markings you see on the side there are all the notes that I made of differences. I was very much wrong in a lot of things. Again, making as close to the novel as possible so that we can more accurately judge all the differences. So just for a little bit of plot explanation on what the book is about, it's a sci-fi book set in the future. Basically, these companies are making androids that are very close to how humans act and behave, and they're using them for a variety of different services, such as making them super strong for like industrial tasks, et cetera, et cetera. But they're only allowed in the colonies outside of Earth, so if any escape to Earth, the bounty hunters have to go track them down. And the way that they do this is they administer a test to test their empathy to see if the robots are capable of sympathy, because they're anatomically correct to humans in every way, except if you do like this really obscure bone marrow test, but you obviously can't do that to a living person. And then one main subject, the test subject in this particular scene is Rachel. She's an android, and a lot of the things that are used in both the novel and the film is asking, what does it mean to be human? What does a human possess that something that isn't human doesn't possess? So adaptation theory, looking at why are we adapting this? Basically it's saying, does the plot from the original warrant being converted over into this film medium? Will it be successful? Will it convert successfully, etc.? One really big concern for a lot of people that oppose the adaptation of this is infidelity with it, basically meaning that they took a really nice book and turned it into a really bad movie. One example is Percy Jackson. It was just an incoherent mess of I don't even know. And Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where it was a very good concept and had a lot of witty humor to begin with, it just sort of tried relying on the same jokes, which didn't really transfer over, so it wasn't really the best movie. On the other hand, though, it's improving in some points drastically across the beginning medium. Jurassic Park, the novel, started out mostly as talking about scientific theories, stuff like that. But then the movie added a lot more plot and, horror elements almost to it, making it a lot more relatable to people. And so it ended up being way more successful. Another is Forrest Gump. which the novel was really dry, if anything, but then it turned into this really heartwarming movie of the 90s, that a lot of people really love and cherish. So once you see, okay, the novel that I have in front of me is something that I want to adapt, you have to start adapting things in it. Now, with thoughts, it's really hard because, you can have pages of a novel where it's just going through all the different things the character's thinking and feeling. Can't do that in a movie. The only movie that can really get away with text just rolling in front of you is Star Wars. So you have to turn everything that was inside their head and make it out loud, obvious, on screen. Take this ambiguous stimuli and turn it into something that the audience can connect with. So in the part of the novel that I looked at was a testing scene where he was testing Rachel to see, how empathetic she is to everything. And all the thoughts that are going on inside his head are very negative because he's seeing the test that they have in front of him is barely able to suffice anymore. And I sort of transposed this again where his face fell. It's all these negative thoughts are being portrayed directly on his face because obviously we can't have just dialogue running across the screen about what he's thinking. So we have to turn it from what he feels in his head to being more obvious on his face.
Memories. You're talking about memories.
So as you can see there, his face did fall. It's Ridley Scott, the director of this movie, still decided to keep that in there. And then what I thought was very interesting is they added the dialogue. The one person that it cut to in halfway through that little clip right there was Eldon, who was the owner and director of the company. And you could sort of see his smug satisfaction as he's realizing their products are getting closer and closer to being completely human and lifelike. But again, it sort of drives home the fact that his job is becoming increasingly more difficult, and all the different things that he has to struggle with his job is to go out and decommission these androids, so he has to struggle with basically killing what looks very human-like. So auditory techniques. You have to combine really good dialogue, human effects, along with movie and sound effects to overall match the tone of what you're trying to convey. And what can be a little bit difficult is that in books you can sort of do whatever you want, meaning that you can have a lot of fantastical elements in there that don't exist in real life. So you have to sort of figure out what to do with all these things that don't really exist. And another is music in movies. You have to make sure that it matches the tones that you're trying to convey at the time, because otherwise if you're playing like Happy Birthday while the psychopath is knifing someone down, that really doesn't make any sense. So the use of music was used right before they're testing, as they're setting up, and there wasn't really anything in the book that would convey any sort of major tone except which was said right before it, where again it was sort of tense and dark and gritty. So I didn't really have anything there that would say a lot about music. I sort of imagined it as being silent or really nothing at all. And then this is what the movie decided to go with. So as you can see there was a very big difference from going from basically silence as they're setting up to now you have this light and airy and sci-fi futuristic sort of feel to it. And thinking why Ridley Scott would decide to do that, it makes a lot of sense because a lot of themes explored later on in the novel are how these androids are becoming more and more human and, like, again, blurring the line between what is human and what isn't human. So this scene right here sets us up to be empathetic towards the androids and stuff like that. Because if we came in this dark, gritty scene and immediately saw Rachel then, we would be like, oh, well, obviously we should just kill all the androids. But this, as it sort of confuses Deckard, the main protagonist, it also confuses us into, well, what do we believe? What do we think about all this that's going on? Which is clarified at the end of the movie. And then there's also a hover car, which really doesn't do much, just used to enter the scene and exit the scene. The book mentions it, I mentions it, but there's no sound. So what do you have to do to try and make the sound of a hover car? So as you can hear there, we don't really have hover cars in real life, so we can't just go out and record one, which is really unfortunate. So how do we take this sound that doesn't exist and make it exist to put into the movie? Well, if we think for like 2 seconds, we can think of something that we see every day that sounds basically very similar to that. Airplanes. So that was a very different sound than the one that you heard in the hover car. But what you can do, and what the sound engineers probably did when they were making the original Blade Runner, is they lowered the kilohertz value and then add a little bit of sci-fi garbly to it to make it sound much more sci-fi. And so I decided to play my hand at that too. So I went in on Audacity and I changed the airplane recording and made it sound, more futuristic. So just for comparison's sake, here was the original hover car. Here's the airplane. And then here's what I made. So again, it's just trying to get it closer and closer to what what the director imagines that it will sound like. Just to overall, again, fit with the entire tone and feel of a science fiction movie. Now, visuals. Visuals are something that do not exist. All you have is black and white words on a page, and very rarely do you have a full description of visuals. All you really have is maybe like what the characters look like, maybe a little bit about their setting, but otherwise not much. So it's up to the cinematographer to really figure out what's going on, what do we need to put into here. One very important thing that I found in my research was the emotion of color. Basically, the colors that you see on the screen can frame us up to feeling different emotions, depending on the color. And so again, it's up to the cinematographer. This is the same scene again as they're setting up for the testing. There wasn't really anything except for, the high stakes sort of tense jive that I was getting from it. And you have to sort of enhance the themes of it. So I decided to do that a little bit, and I added color to it. And I basically said it was a sunset orange coming in through the back window. It was hitting Deckard's face, giving him this angelic glow, almost a protagonist hero. Oh my God, Sammy. And I compared it against Rachel, where it's hitting the back of her head, giving her this angry glow. So I was wrong a little bit. How it worked for Rachel is it had sunlight coming back through, but instead of sunset, it was sunrise. So it was much more whiter, bluish color. And instead of antagonizing her, it sort of distorted her. Again, where she isn't really necessarily human, the lines of what we can see are also blurred. It's very hard to see her face, see what she's thinking, feeling, etc. And her eyes, usually what we use to denote humanity and other things, are also, you can't really see it here, but they're very bright and sort of piercing and very strange. So it's non-human, but also human at the same time, which juxtaposes it, which makes us have that dissonance within us too. Also, what I thought was interesting is that she's smoking, and this is playing some pretty easy stuff to pick up, but still, like machinery, smoke, you can sort of see how it's connecting back to our robotic roots, which I thought was interesting, again, juxtaposing it across the table to Deckard. Deckard I thought was interesting because instead, again, of giving him this just glow of being a hero and all, he had half of his head in the darkness and half in the light, which I thought was really interesting because it sort of played into the fact that as a bounty hunter, he's saying things that he believes are true. He's saying, things very one-track, like I have a job, I'm going to do my job, I'm going to do really well. Well, his mind is in the darkness, and it shows that juxtaposition again of he's seeing these robots before him and he's feeling more empathetic toward them, and he's trying to figure out, what he believes, and it's very confused and dark. So again, the comparison of the light and the dark with him, again, sort of try and convey what the director wants us to feel about the film. So in conclusion, books are really good to adapt from. They're going to get a lot of money at studios, most likely. They're really good for plot and stuff. The audio and visual techniques means that you can sort of make something different, and even though it is different, it's still the same, which is really why you can make a film and have the novel still. They both shine in different lights, and overall it just gives us, the audience, a better viewing experience. We're excited, and does anyone have any questions?